Okay, we're on air. This is TC meeting February the 4th, 2015 for io.js. We have Bert, Chris, Colin, Dominic, Isaac, Michael, and Trevor, and myself. And we've got a fairly small agenda, so maybe we can plow through this fairly quickly. First of all, we're going to do a mini stand-up. Who wants to go first on that? I vote Bert because he's first in my list.
Oh, right. I've my week was as usual. Not writing so much code, commenting on a lot of issues. The interesting thing, maybe worth mentioning, is that I'm still working on ICU and finding a way to add it to io.js without blowing up the binary size and memory footprint too much. I wrote some cool stuff that transforms all the data files into like densely packed C code, and it is my belief that we might be able to add support for all languages in about, like, let's say, a megabyte of object code. And that's, I don't know, like 10 times better than ICU if we do it really optimally, and the dumb way would be like 30 times smaller. So, but later. Chris, you want to go next?
Sure. For the last week or so, I've been poking at integrating ESLint as the linter, which is supposed to be something really small, but ended up kind of like blowing out a little bit. Otherwise, had the first readable stream meeting last week, and yeah. Colin, do you want to go?
Sure. Is my microphone working this week?
Seems like it is.
Yep. So I've just been doing the usual, going over issues and writing code. The biggest thing I did last week was probably removing almost all of the util.is type functions. Other than that, I've just been working on, internal stuff for my real job. I guess Isaac's is next.
I have also been doing almost entirely internal stuff from my real job. There's a lot going on in NPM these days, so.
When are you guys going to upgrade to io.js?
Well, actually, we just started talking about that.
I saw some issues.
Yeah, probably. So there was an issue with we had to change some of our test runners so that they would handle the keep alive stuff, because otherwise the server just kind of stays open forever. That turned out to be actually a really tiny thing to fix, and then some other just like little nits and gotchas and stuff. But I think so NPM. I think probably the next release of NPM, the client, will pass all of its tests on io.js, and as a company, as we're releasing stuff, like more of our services that we're spinning up, we're going to start using io.js for them. Probably won't be anything that, hopefully won't be anything that anyone ever can tell or notice. Because when you notice our service, something went wrong. That's it for me, and so I think actually, Dominic, are you next?
Not on my screen, but I'll go next. Not too much related to io.js, just poking around the streams working group and getting that started. We got a nice pull request that it has a nice constructor now. I think that's it.
Michael?
Getting the tracing group off the ground, mostly just like trying to get things organized and take notes, not actually like participate too much. But a lot of people want to be involved in that. Working on the roadmap stuff a lot more lately. To companies and built a list of companies to reach out to. Started in questionnaire and then usually like a follow-up talk, because they rarely feel like that really addressed all. Because almost no companies want to give us honest feedback like on the record. So turned into a document, but Early feedback is that people are worried about version number conflicts between io.js and Node, and people are very worried about debugging and tracing as well.
Most overrated feature ever.
Trevor?
Trevor, you're muted. There you go.
I am finally moved into the house. I am surrounded by boxes as I lay on the floor. And I'm just getting caught up from what I missed last week. What I have in the immediate future is kind of to the side related to the tracing stuff, getting in some integrated hooks. Basically, what I really want to do is just make sure that the proper hooks are in there so that all these people asking for all these things can just implement it on their own. Yeah, I really don't think I really don't want a huge list of features included in io.js. I'd rather allow people to do that themselves and just put a minimal interface in for that. That's pretty much it for the immediate. Get caught up and do that.
So this means you've got internet in your house now. So that's good news.
Yes, I hooked it up this morning about an hour before this meeting.
Awesome. Okay, so I have been what have I been doing? So I've been working on the build delegation stuff. So there's now a script in the repo for cutting releases that does all of the work of promoting builds that have been produced by the build farm, and we put that to the test with Chris this week. So Chris released 1.1.0 by himself. So that's now in play, and we have a process for adding new authorized build releases, basically build releasers. So myself and Chris so far, but be interested in expanding that list a little bit more soon. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. We had Ben join. Do you want to, Ben? Are you able to do a quick stand up? There's no sound from you, Ben.
No audio for Ben. Yep.
Okay. That's fine. Okay, let's move on. I'll just do a quick review of last meeting. So if there's anything that you want to raise as I do this, then please interrupt me. So last time we looked at the adding new collaborators business. So Chris was we got feedback from Chris's first round. He's got a second round scheduled, I think, for this week, Friday. So that's another group of 6 coming in, which is great. So we've got, if you look down the bottom of the README now, there's a big long list of people who are collaborators, which is just really good. We looked at release cycle and versioning. I think we punted a lot of that down the road to when we have a bit more activity under our belts. Then beyond that, we had 2 items, which was the degram and buffer, which was they were minor 7.4 minor changes, and they simply came under the versioning thing, so we skipped over that. Replace util is type with type of. Now the resolutions of that was simply that Colin produced a big pull request replacing them. I think there's work going on somewhere to document that process and what's recommended for collaborators, but that's happening on GitHub. We looked at the suggestion to lower stability level to maximum stability level to stable, where that wasn't resolved but moved back to GitHub, I think, but not a overwhelming response to change that right now. We looked at maintaining our own package registries for io.js, so that was largely driven by the homebrew stuff, but there's probably going to be more progress in that issue, number 640. Working groups, PR, that's been merged now, so Michael's suggestion for how working groups should work is now part of the repo. There's a document in there. Remove unstable for messaging, so the io.js website now doesn't say unstable, it's silent on the topic of stability. Node.js and io.js should not break each other was a quick discussion. That was about us when we install, we are overriding the Node binary with a symlink. The resolution there is simply that's just how it is. We don't have a better way of doing that now, and if we don't do that, then things will break in even worse ways. The working group reports.
Part of the resolution there too was to write a new installation document, and that got logged in the website group. So there will be better info docs that more clearly outline how all this is going to work. So.
Great. And as part of that too, Michael, you should make sure that that there's some overlap with the installers as well, so that if you want to change the installers to have better wording, because there has been some criticism of that. So just make sure that gets covered there. So that's it for the last meeting. So let's just hop straight into the couple of items we have. So Vladimir wanted just to talk about the assert module and the work he's been doing with deep equal and the introduction of deep strict equal. So I put his points into the document there. He wanted us to have a quick chat about the future of the assert module, the relationship between assert and CommonJS unit testing spec, issue number 636, and there's 639 as well. So we need that's all about whether deep equality should test prototypes or not, and that's why deep strict equal is introduced. There is a bit of a clash there in that the prototype property is checked, but what is it? It's going to be. He wants to remove it from deep equal and move it to deep strict equal. The original one was to make deep equal more rigid, I think. Does anyone here have any opinions they want to assert about the assert module and about how this works? Because I know Fedor was quoted in the issue for this meeting as saying that this is a problem with the CommonJS unit testing spec, but Vladimir is asserting that that spec is dead and sort of irrelevant to this process. Anyone want to talk about?
We don't write code for 2-year-old specs that nobody else implements. Like CommonJS is gone. It's not a thing. It doesn't mean that if it's a good idea, it's a good idea. It stands on its own. But saying that like, whoa, this is the CommonJS spec, like, so what? Don't care. Go look up the CommonJS package spec or the CommonJS module spec or the CommonJS file system spec. Like, we don't implement any of them. CommonJS is gone. It was gone like in 2010, and it's even more gone now.
The only interesting thing is potential compatibility with jQuery or QUnit rather.
Yeah, so that's relevant. I think deep strict equal and kind of subtly changing the way deep equal works. Like, I mean, I have no strong opinion about it. I think it's fine. The changes all looked pretty reasonable. My only comment is like, seriously, who cares about CommonJS?
Well, honestly, who cares about this module? Like, I don't think that this should even be in core. Like, there are better assert modules in the ecosystem. There would probably be even more better assert modules in the ecosystem if we didn't have this in core.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. And it's useful for testing Node itself. It's also really useful for doing runtime asserts. Like, if you want to just like not as a testing library, but if you wanted to be like, look, I shouldn't be able to enter this particular part of code, so I'm going to do assert.fail, or this should always be called as like a class method, so I'm going to do assert this instance of class. Like, I use that stuff all the time. It's super handy. But yeah, I don't think it's something that we should like waste a whole ton of time and effort like talking about. If jQuery does it a specific way and it's not that too big a difference from how we do it, like, yeah, whatever, fine.
I guess the question here then is, does anyone have strong enough opinion to say no to Vladimir's changes? Because the way I see it, he's stepping up to do some work here, and unless there's a good reason that anyone here wants to object to that, then maybe we should just let him go for it, because no one else has really presented a good, and a good negative to this. My negative that I presented was simply that it's a bit of a break with how Joint Node will be doing it, and it will have some impact on userland, but I think the way he's got it now is relatively minimal.
Just like as an aside, Ryan was complaining about the assert module 4 years ago and lamenting that he can't change it because of this spec. So if that's still our position, like that's kind of sad because nobody else cares about this spec anymore.
Ryan did a lot of lamenting, and I don't think we should put too much value or weight on like what Ryan did or didn't lament about. He just kind of liked lamenting sometimes, and it's frustrating running software projects. So yeah, that happens. But I think I don't think that this spec should really be like the reason we make a decision one way or the other. It doesn't. But at the same time, like it's not a bad idea. What the spec suggests is like it's fine. It doesn't seem like the changes are actually that big of a divergence from what we're doing. Are there any like actually specific things that will break? I mean, yeah, it'll be different from how Joyent Node does it, and so it might make it trickier to merge in, but it doesn't look like that big of a difference.
So
The only change now that's different is checking the prototype object.
Yeah.
Is not
And that's for doing assert.deep equal, right? It uses the prototype object, and then assert.deep strict equal would do a strict equal comparison on all of the members and also check the prototype.
So my take is it seems like medium risk, low reward. So I would lump this under like this is a 2.0 change, but obviously don't just release 2.0 for this. Just like save it. That's my intuition at least.
Yeah, it has effectively no impact on userland because everyone in userland is using some, because the cert libraries are so easy to write, right? So like people just write their own. We could even just say, sorry, this is the way it is. There's not much value in changing it. You're welcome to publish your own npm module that does asserts however you want.
I use assert a lot.
Do you use it for runtime or actually testing?
Testing.
So
and for reference implementations where I'm throwing asserts into, yeah, I guess that's kind of runtime, but they're not real products.
So
That's prototype runtime.
let's split the two things for a second. So the deep strict equals addition, that seems quite logical to me. It's basically that function. You always thought deep equal worked like that, but actually it didn't. It turned out not to do that. And so now we added another method. That's great. The prototype comparison bug, I don't really understand, but if I listen to Ben, it sounds like this was just a bug. We're fixing a bug here. Is that true? Is my interpretation correct? Then so there.
I think it is a bug, but I think that it is a bug that people have probably written a lot of code that relies on. So. It changes existing behavior in that now empty arrays are not strict equal to empty objects.
Yeah, the different, Ben's just pointing out in chat that the difference should be that it should have been checking dunder proto rather than the dot prototype object. So, which makes sense to me. And so Vladimir's the compromise is simply to introduce this new method so that, because if we were to change it to be checking the dunder proto property, then that would have more potential to break userland code. So introducing a deep strict equal is a compromise around that.
Hold on a second, really?
No, I think you're getting it wrong. There's the deep equal solves another issue, and that should be actually a separate method, even though it's clearly better than the old method. But from the code, it seems that there was always the intention to do what this recent prototype fix actually made it do. So I don't see why we couldn't just fix it as a bug. I don't really think it will break much userland code. And if it does, then there was an assertion failing that should have been failing, and people put there to fail. It's not strict equal.
Yeah,
so
that's a bug.
It's a bug fix.
I'm with Ben. This is a bug. It should be checking dunder proto and not prototype. That's a bug fix.
All right, we'll go for it. I think we're still in the experimenting stage, and I mean, if this was a browser, we would definitely not make this fix, right? Like this would be, we would have too many constraints. But I can believe that we want to be a little bit more adventurous with I/O.
So the alternative, if we don't change that a.prototype equals b.prototype, if we don't change that to a.dunderproto equals b.dunderproto, then we should just remove that line because it's already checked later on in the function where we loop over all the enumerable properties.
Prototype is usually not enumerable.
No. This is not the function.prototype. This is object.prototype. So we're doing a deep equal of like A is like open brace prototype B. You know, it's like we're checking the object.prototype, not the object.dunderproto, not the internal prototype object.
Yeah, so deep strict equal introduces dunderproto by way of get prototype of. So object.get prototype of A not equal object.get prototype of B. So that's what deep strict equal is doing now. So it's the replacement for that functionality that should have been there in the first place.
So the only question is, do we?
I agree. No, I read,
yeah. So
read the examples more.
Let's remove that line from deep equal, and we'll add deep strict equal that works the way we kind of already intended it to work, and then.
But no. The deep strict equal function does something else. What it does is it compares primitives in sort of the tree with
strict equality, yeah.
So that deep strict equal wasn't added for this purpose.
Right. That's a separate thing.
But it also doesn't. No, it doesn't. If you look at the diff, then it's also checking the dot prototype and the get prototype of.
There's no need to check dot prototype.
No, sorry, I'm looking at that wrong. The dot prototype of is. Oh, hang on. No, it does introduce it again. I think his pull request is actually reintroducing it, but I think he's probably going to fix that. So if you have a look at the diff for 639, you'll see that there's an if strict, the deep strict equal, and the get prototype of is compared there.
Yeah. So I love Vladimir's changes. I think that they're good. I think
does anybody not?
The CommonJS unit testing spec is bullshit and should be forgotten, but the reasons aside, like the code does stand for itself. I think it's a good change. I'm a little bit hesitant of the breaking change aspect of it because it's going to change how assert.deep equal empty array empty object will be. Probably those were bugs, but it's a bug fix that is a breaking change bug fix. So maybe we put off that part and we just only compare prototypes on deep strict equal.
I'm not that.
Michael, you sound like a robot to me.
I'm not convinced that the people who have them that don't have a bug in their code. Like,
no, okay. So there was a good example actually in the original pull request where it wouldn't be a bug, which is where you are you're creating an object with a prototype, some instance of some class, and then you're deep equaling it with some object literal because you just want to check that some properties are all the same as a batch. So that seems to me like a compelling use case.
It sounds like we have a relatively conservative decision here, which is that we test prototypes properly in deep strict equal and don't test them in deep equal, and that's reasonable.
Okay.
So are we? Hang on. Are we landing on merging deep strict equal but holding off on the deep equal changes, or are we just going to go for both of them?
Go for both of them, and by both of them, we specifically mean the conservative one for deep equal that only removes the line and doesn't add a new check.
Yeah. So 636 and 639.
And not 621.
Yeah. Okay, any disagreement to that position? Okay, great. Well, I think Zami's got his blessing then, so we'll pass that on if he's not watching. Cool. So the next item for discussion was, does somebody want to fill in the minutes with that suggestion and that passed while I talk? The release PGP key strategy and policy. So the reason I put this up was simply there was some discussion about how to go forward with this. So the way that I've structured it now, and the way that it's been merged into the repo, is that the people that are authorized to do releases, their PGP key fingerprints are listed on the README. So if you look down the bottom of the README, you'll see mine and Chris's. And there's also instructions in the middle of the README about how you can verify downloads using that. So you can fetch those keys from a key server, and you can verify the SHA-SUMS file has been signed by one of those people. So the two things that came up in discussion were about which key server to use, and the other one was Ben suggested using we could have a master key and then sign the individual's keys that are doing the releases, so that then we could do revocation and a bit more cleaner process. But then you've got to deal with who has the master key and all that sort of stuff. So so the thing on the key server, we're currently using the documents currently state that you should use it's suggested to use the skskeyservers.net interface to add your key, and that's where the document suggests you should get the keys from as well. The reason for that is simply I used the only example of a documented process for doing this in the wild is the Docker files that Docker are using for the official Node one, and now our Docker team are using for the io.js one. They're using SKS key servers for this, so I just went with that because I don't think anyone else has actually documented this process. It turns out that, so Vanilla's suggestion to use pgp.mit.edu, I believe, from what I understand, that that's actually part of that pool anyway. So skskeyservers.net is like an interface to a larger pool that includes that server. Chris had some problems putting his key in it, and I think the reason for that is simply it's a terrible web interface for adding your key. I suspect if you add it to just one of the pool servers, then it'll propagate across the rest of them. That could be something we could figure out over time as we add more people and experiment with this, unless somebody else knows better here. Yeah, so Chris had secure connection issues with HTTPS, but I think the reason for that is because when you're submitting via the web form for skskeyservers.net, you're actually submitting to a random one of the pool servers, and each of them is TLS, but they have their own server name that is not skskeyservers.net. So your browser is rejecting that and saying it's insecure. I'm not sure how that ever worked. Maybe it did work with older browsers, but it's a bit of an odd interface. The second thing about the master key and signing subkeys was my comment to that simply was my preference was for a more distributed model where we don't centralize too much of the authority and the activity into this central group like we have now with the TC, but we don't do that too much with our activities. But each person's keys stand on their own. But that's merely a simple organizational philosophy thing. So does anybody here have any opinions on this, strong or otherwise? No, I didn't think so. So if there's no strong opinions, then let's just table the discussion till it comes up again. But yeah, that's fine. I'm happy with that. So somebody else wanted to put something on this list. VM bugs.
I just put that there because I thought it's something I'm interested in talking about at some point. But we've got 5 minutes left, so we could probably just do it on GitHub, unless anybody else here is really interested in high bandwidth discussion.
Do you want to just give us a summary about what this is about?
Sure. There's just been a couple interesting bugs that have cropped up both before io.js 1.0 and afterwards, and after regarding the contextify switch. Just weird edge cases that at this point seem a lot like V8 failures. Like we upgraded V8 one day, and then this one joint node bug appeared, and there's this other issue that we haven't really solved, but it reminds me a lot of something Isaac had to do that was like horribly hacky and has a large to-do comment that's like, we really should fix this in V8. So I kind of wanted to start thinking about a plan to kind of maybe you just run the design of VM by the V8 team and say like, what should, like, is this sane? What are we missing? You know, is this giant to do a good thing? Should we send a pull request to V8 for that? So I kind of want to get that, because I, as you know, VM is something I care about, and even if other people have largely taken over the stuff that I didn't understand that I put in there in the first place, I do want to try and shepherd it. So that's that basically.
I'm a big fan of checking with the V8 team. Use your at google.com email address and be our guy on the inside.
Sounds good.
I don't remember what that to-do comment is. I think it had something to do with syntax errors and getting an appropriate stack trace or something like that.
No. That Fedora fixed that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is awesome. Although again, I'm not sure if maybe there was a better way, but it was about defined property. There not being like whatever these like proxy hooks are that we're using that aren't really proxies, and like we're missing one for defined property, so function declarations failed.
Oh.
Yeah, you remember that.
Oh, yeah. So we still had to, because even so, if you set because we set a proxy on the global that we pass in, and if you define a function, it wasn't triggering the proxy on the global object.
Yeah.
So I had to still go through and do the copy over, because, and the nice thing was at least global functions won't be like created asynchronously, right? They have to be created synchronously, so it was actually safe. But yeah, it was still kind of a loophole in there, like global proxy handling thing. I don't know how canonical it is to even have a proxy object as your global.
Oh, so actually,
V8 instance.
Well, all web browsers have that. V8 uses a different hack where it uses like a hidden prototype, but per spec it's actually a proxy, which is great.
Oh, okay. So we're kind of doing exactly what browsers do for that.
Yeah.
Well, that's.
We don't have to talk about this too much in depth.
But yeah, if you want to bring that up with the V8 team, I mean, the answer might be, what do you mean? That's not hacky at all. It's completely reasonable.
Right.
In which case, okay, let's just remove the to-do comment.
Yes. But it just reminded me there's a new bug that's also about function declarations, and so I was hoping it was related. Maybe by fixing the to-do, we will fix that bug.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I'll take a look at that bug if I have time, which I probably won't. This is the issue 548 or the 9048 in joint?
548 is the particular one that reminded me.
Okay. Function redefinition.
It makes me wonder if like our copying logic might be a little messed.
That is interesting. So the issue is, if you run it in context and then you run it in context again and then you run the test in that context, it looks like, yeah, then the copying might not be working the second time around.
That's my guess.
Oh, no. I know why this is happening, I think, because the second time around it already has something called test, and it's no, that doesn't make sense. I actually have no idea. Let's just table it for now.
You're getting Isaac to fix the bug himself. I suggest that we do it like you do it in the issue. Of course, it's a great idea. Like, you don't have permission to fix bugs. And you can string along the V8 team and programs, and more kudos to you.
Yeah, the only reason I thought it might be reasonably TC-ish, and again I put it at the end, like if we have time, it's just because it's kind of reaching deep into our interaction with V8 and like our globals and stuff, because we use VM for like the module system. So.
I think a similar issue may come up someday, where we have different requirements on the event loop. But another day. And you are, I think, the expert in the VM module. I don't know. I think Ben and Isaac indeed are our good candidates. Either that. But yeah, please figure it out.
Okay, let's move on. So the only other thing to discuss is next meeting. It's going to clash with Node Summit. I'm not going to be there, but a bunch of you will be. Do you guys want to have a meeting on the ground, or do you want to push this to when it's not conflicting?
Are we expecting anything at Node Summit that might like affect us? Are there going to be any like, you know?
I don't know. Let's just
Anything?
this out over the weekend and see what people's availability is. And like, we had hardly anything on the agenda this week anyway, so I think that we could totally skip a week. Fine.
Skip it. Okay. So that brings us to the 18th. Let's do another one on the 18th. Okay, done.
Scheduling for the 18th seems good. Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing a bunch of you at Node Summit.
Yeah. Who's not going? Rob.
Yeah, I declined this time. I've just got so much on, and traveling takes multiple days out of my time to do things.
Okay, that's all.
Anybody else not going?
I'm not going.
I'm not going.
Okay. Too bad. You should.
No, I don't live there anymore.
I'll be there.
Okay. Well, you guys have a good time.
Thanks.
Have fun.
All right.
Okay, so well, let's wrap this up then. Good meeting. Nice and short, even though we started very late. So thanks very much.
Goodbye.
Thanks.